Money isn't attracted to what you say, but to what you transmit in silence. Before any negotiation, before any word, your energy is already communicating something to the world. Posture, habits, daily choices, and even the way you relate to yourself send out clear signals of abundance or of scarcity. It took me a while to notice this. I believed I had to convince others, talk a lot, explain my intentions. But while I was busy talking, people around me, without saying a word, were winning opportunities, respect, and trust. That's when I understood. Money flows first to those who radiate coherence, confidence, and clarity, not to those who try to impress with speeches. This silent attraction isn't magic. It's the result of consistent practices that shape who you are. And when you transform from within, your presence naturally communicates wealth, effortlessly, wordlessly. If this truth already hit you, drop a like and subscribe, because what I'm about to show you might just flip the switch in your relationship with money. Habit 1. Posture speaks before your voice. I used to believe that earning respect meant talking a lot, justifying every step, and proving I knew things, until I noticed that, often, the most admired people in the room were the ones who barely spoke. They transmitted something else, silent confidence. So I started paying attention. It wasn't what they said. It was how they carried themselves. Shoulders straight, steady gaze, calm movements, no rush. That presence alone already spoke authority. I decided to test it. At first, it felt strange to adjust my posture on purpose, control my breathing, walk with firmness. But soon I noticed something. The more I aligned my body, the more my mind aligned too. Suddenly, I was treated differently in meetings, interviews, even casual hangouts. People listened to me more, even when I spoke less. I discovered that the body is the first language of prosperity. This habit taught me that attracting money isn't about carefully chosen words. It's about the confidence you transmit without saying a thing. Money gravitates toward clarity and firmness, and your posture reflects that. When you position yourself as someone who already deserves abundance, the world responds before you even ask. Today I know my posture is my first business card. I don't need to justify myself. My body communicates confidence. Comment: my posture attracts wealth if you've also decided to align presence and confidence before opening your mouth. Habit 2. Silent discipline builds respect. For a long time, I thought I had to tell others my plans to be taken seriously. I'd say I was going to start working out, save money, launch a new project. But deep down, those were just words that rarely turned into action. The result? Empty promises and a fragile identity. Until I started observing people who truly thrived. They didn't announce their goals. They just acted. In silence, they repeated consistent habits every single day. That contrast made me rethink my way of living. I stopped talking about what I would do and simply started doing it. Waking up early, studying, taking care of my body, tracking expenses, building routines. No audience, no applause, no explanations. And something curious happened. People around me began to notice. Not because of what I said, but because of what became visible over time. My energy shifted, my results showed up, my confidence grew. I discovered that money isn't attracted to speeches, but to silent consistency. Those who are disciplined without flaunting it end up transmitting natural credibility. And that's what makes doors open and opportunities appear. Today, I don't need to say I'm disciplined. My actions speak for me. Comment: my discipline speaks for me, if you've also realized that silent consistency is worth more than loud promises. Habit 3. Your environment communicates who you are. For a long time, I didn't realize how the space around me spoke about me. My desk was full of crumpled papers, forgotten mugs, and tangled cables. My room had clothes thrown everywhere and things out of place. I thought it didn't matter, that it was just a mess. But I started noticing something. The most prosperous people I knew treated their environments as reflections of who they were. No excess, no disorder. Every detail transmitted care, clarity, and purpose. I decided to apply this to my life. On the first day, I organized my workspace. I threw out what I didn't need, cleaned up, and kept only the essentials. It was impressive how immediately my energy shifted. My focus grew, fatigue diminished, and even my ideas began to flow better. I discovered that the environment isn't neutral. It communicates. If there's chaos around you, you transmit confusion. If there's order and intention, you transmit power. Over time, I realized that even other people started treating me differently when they saw my space. It was as if they perceived more professionalism, more seriousness. And I began to see myself differently too. External organization reinforced my internal identity as someone disciplined and prosperous. Today, I understand that attracting money also means aligning your physical space with the abundance you want. Your environment is your silent showcase. Comment: my environment reflects prosperity. If you've also realized that the place where you live and work communicates who you are. Habit 4. The energy you put into self-care attracts or repels money. For a long time, I thought self-care was just vanity. If I dressed well, it was for others. If I ate healthy, it was just to avoid gaining weight. If I went to bed early, it was because I needed to be rested for work. I always saw self-care as an external obligation, never as something that communicated who I was. Until I noticed a pattern in prosperous people. They cared for themselves as if protecting $1 million asset. I began to notice upright posture, well-kept skin, clean and tidy clothes, a body full of energy. Nothing screamed luxury or show-off, but everything communicated self-respect. That silent presence transmitted confidence and made them appear as people who deserve to take up space. That's when I understood. The way you treat yourself is what the world believes you deserve. I decided to apply this. I started investing in my body as a source of energy, in sleep as a tool for clarity, in food as fuel for my goals. The impact was immediate. My productivity rose, my posture changed, my self-confidence grew. Without saying a word, my body began to communicate discipline, abundance, and self-respect. I discovered that money doesn't move toward those who radiate neglect and scarcity, but toward those who silently demonstrate that they know their own worth. When you treat yourself as a priority, the world begins to see you as a priority too. Comment: I am my greatest asset. If you've also realized that self-care is the first silent sign of prosperity. Habit 5. The silence of your choices speaks louder than words. There was a time in my life when I felt the need to justify every expense. If I bought something cheap, I felt poor. If I bought something expensive, I had to explain why. It was as if my words always had to prove that I knew how to handle money. Until I noticed a pattern among the truly prosperous. They didn't justify anything. Their choices spoke for them. One of them, whom I admired closely, made financial decisions calmly and discreetly. He never bragged about a successful investment, nor did he hide when cutting an unnecessary expense. His actions communicated intelligence and mastery. And the most interesting thing? People trusted him without needing any speech. Silent coherence was his strongest argument. I decided to apply this. I began to observe how each choice I made transmitted a message. When I said no to an impulse purchase, I was communicating discipline. When I prioritized investing in knowledge, I was communicating long-term vision. When I organized my finances, I was transmitting responsibility. I realized that money gravitates toward those who don't need to prove anything, but demonstrate everything through their actions. Today I understand that attracting prosperity without saying a word is exactly that, aligning daily choices with the identity you want to build. It's not about convincing, it's about living. Comment: my choices communicate prosperity. If you've also realized that every financial decision is a silent message to the world. Habit 6. Calmness transmits power and attracts opportunities. I was always anxious. Spoke too fast, answered before thinking, rushed to prove I was ready. I thought this restlessness showed interest and capability, but in reality it transmitted insecurity. Confident people aren't in a hurry. I realized this clearly while observing leaders and entrepreneurs. The most respected ones rarely spoke much, and they never rushed. Their silence carried weight. One day during a meeting, I noticed something. While everyone tried to stand out with arguments, there was a man who listened quietly, taking notes. When he finally spoke, with just a few sentences, he captured everyone's attention. It wasn't what he said, but how he said it. Calmly, clearly, firmly. That posture transmitted authority. I decided to practice. I started speaking less and listening more. Whenever I felt the urge to interrupt or speed things up, I took a deep breath and waited. At first, it seemed like I was losing space, but soon I realized my presence carried more weight. People listened to me more carefully and respected my pauses. I discovered that calmness isn't a lack of energy. It's a sign of self-control. And money, like self-control, it runs from haste and impulsiveness, but gravitates toward those who radiate confidence and patience. Today, I know I don't need to raise my voice or rush to prove my worth. My calmness speaks for me. Comment: my calmness attracts wealth. If you've also realized that tranquility is one of the most powerful signs of prosperity. Habit 7. Consistency builds credibility without words. I used to start projects full of energy but quit halfway. Gym, courses, side businesses. I abandoned all of them before seeing results. And of course, frustration followed. Worse, People around me stopped believing me when I said I was starting something new. My words lost weight because I had drained them of value myself. One day, I observed someone close who was the opposite of me. He didn't talk about his plans, he simply executed them. No rush, no announcements. Every day, he was at the gym at the same time. Every week, he delivered another part of his project. Every month, there was progress, even if subtle. And in that silence, I noticed the difference. Silent consistency creates credibility. It's not what you promise, but what you repeat. I decided to apply this to my life. I chose a few key habits and committed to repeating them daily, without announcing anything. At first, no one noticed. But after weeks, people started asking what I was doing to change so much. My energy, my body, my discipline, everything was different. I didn't need to explain. My consistency explained for me. I discovered that money is attracted in the same way. It seeks credibility. It doesn't come to those who promise, but to those who prove through consistency that they can sustain growth. Today, I know my word only has strength because my actions support it. Comment: my consistency speaks for me. If you've also realized that credibility is born from what you repeat, not from what you promise. Habit 8. Your gaze communicates value before words. I was always the type who avoided eye contact. In conversations, I looked down, shifted my eyes, or stayed glued to my phone so I wouldn't seem invasive. I thought it was shyness, but in reality, I was transmitting insecurity. Until one day, in an important meeting, I realized how a simple look could change everything. While I tried to explain my point with long sentences, a colleague spoke just a few words, but looked directly at the person in front of her. There was no arrogance, only clarity. It was impressive to see how the entire room's attention turned to her, not because of her speech, but because of the silent conviction her gaze transmitted. I decided to practice. At first, holding eye contact was uncomfortable. It felt like I was being analyzed or that I had to justify myself. But little by little, I realized that eye contact isn't confrontation. It's a silent affirmation of presence. When we look firmly, we show that we're confident in who we are, and that changes everything. People begin to trust you more because they feel truth and clarity. Money, just like opportunities, flows toward those who radiate security, and your gaze is one of the most direct ways to communicate that without words. Today, I know I don't need complex speeches to be taken seriously. My gaze speaks before my voice. Comment: my gaze transmits confidence. If you've also realized that prosperity begins with the way you look at the world. Habit 9. How you handle promises attracts or repels money. I had a dangerous habit. I promised more than I could deliver. To please others, I'd say I'd deliver quickly, that I'd help with something, that I'd be there. At first, it seemed like this built trust. But when I failed to deliver, my word lost its value. And with it, my credibility. Money doesn't stick to those who transmit instability. It was by observing a mentor that I noticed the difference. He didn't talk much, didn't make promises easily. Sometimes he even seemed cold. But when he said he'd do something, you could bet on it. It was done on time, with quality. People trusted him precisely because his words were rare, yet always confirmed by actions. I discovered that wealth flows toward those who honor commitments, not those who make empty promises. I decided to apply this. I stopped making impulsive promises. When someone asked me for something, I took a deep breath before answering. If I said yes, it was because I was sure I'd follow through. At first, saying no was uncomfortable, but soon I realized my yes carried more weight. People began respecting me more, and even seeking me out more often, because they knew they could count on me. I learned that money likes predictability. It runs from empty words and gravitates toward those who demonstrate reliability. It's not about talking a lot. It's about making every word matter. Comment: my word has value. If you've also realized that keeping promises is one of the silent signs that attract prosperity. Habit 10. The silent decision to never go back. For a long time, I lived stuck in cycles. I'd start something full of energy, and at the first obstacle, I'd quit. It was as if every attempt already came with an emergency exit built in. This kept me living in the eternal almost, until I realized true transformation happens when you make silent, internal decisions from which there's no turning back. I met someone who embodied this perfectly. He didn't announce his goals or give motivational speeches. He just decided and never went back. If he chose to change his diet, there was no room for exceptions. If he decided to save money, there were no excuses. His strength wasn't in what he said, but in the silent firmness with which he upheld his choices. That stance radiated something magnetic: confidence. I decided to test this habit. I picked a goal I always abandoned halfway, studying every day. I told no one, made no public promises, I simply committed internally. I won't go back. The first days were tough. The temptation to quit hit hard. But as I repeated the decision, I began to feel an inner shift. My mind understood there was no option to retreat. I discovered that this firmness changes how you see yourself and how the world responds to you. Money and opportunities are drawn to those who are non-negotiable with their own choices. Today I understand I don't need grand speeches. I need silent, unshakable decisions. Comment: my decisions are non-negotiable if you've also chosen to eliminate the option of quitting and to live with firmness. Money isn't attracted to the words you speak, but to the silent energy you transmit. Throughout this script, we've seen that prosperity is the consequence of signals that need no explanation. Your posture, your discipline, the way you treat your environment, the way you treat yourself, your calmness, your gaze, your consistency, the credibility of your promises, and the firmness of your decisions. These habits change how you see yourself, and inevitably, how the world responds to you. The most powerful part is that none of this depends on luck or external circumstances. They're daily choices, simple practices, that shape the identity of someone who already lives in abundance. You don't need to convince anyone that you're prosperous. You just need to be. Money naturally flows to those who demonstrate, without words, that they're ready to receive it and multiply it. Now I want to ask you, which of these habits will you adopt starting today? Which silent decision are you willing to make to transform your presence into a magnet for prosperity? Share it in the comments and leave your affirmation recorded. This might be the first step towards solidifying your new identity. And if this content made sense to you, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Here, every video is an invitation for you to grow, not only in what you do, but in what you transmit. Because at the end of the day, the most powerful way to attract money isn't in what you say, but in who you decide to be in silence.